What's happening, y'all? Dom here from Lensprotogo and Lens Rentals. Welcome back to the channel for another installment in our new series we're doing called What's New with the 2. In today's video, we do happen to be talking about two Mark II lenses, both from Sony. One is the 16-35mm 2.8 G Master version 2 and the 70-200 f4 G OSS Mark II Macro. I'm going to be doing just a quick overview of what improvement these Mark II lenses got from their original models. This 70-200 f4 Macro, I never got to shoot on the original one. I can only say that I've experienced the Mark I of just this lens, the 16-35, but out of both of these Mark II lenses, it's the only lens that I have the original, which always just makes a better comparison. But I did definitely want to talk about how awesome this thing is a little bit. So what are some of those updates I'm talking about? Well, let's start with this 16-35. Starting with like body and build changes and then working our way on the inside. First striking difference is this Mark II is significantly smaller than the Mark I. This Mark II has easily shaved off an inch from that overall length at each focal length extreme. This Mark II is also much lighter than this Mark I. Just feeling these two like in my hands right now, it's actually kind of hard to believe that these two lenses are the exact same focal lengths and speed. Swap this old one off and replace it with this new G Master 2, you're feeling that difference. And again, right on theme, a lot of the additions that we're seeing on the second version of these G Master lenses. This 16-35 Mark II has this physical aperture ring that is absent on the Mark I. You have the ability to click or de-click this aperture ring. It's just nice to have like that haptic response when you're making that iris change. No surprise there, we're getting an iris lock too. Okay, now like I said, kind of moving on to the inside, more like programming and optics between both of these. So parfocality. This was something I was expecting to be like a much more jarring difference, but the Mark I held up on this really well. So Sony claims that with this Mark II, focus shift is going to be much less pronounced than the original version. But honestly, in my testing, I found that both of these lenses to be almost exactly parfocal. So in terms of an improvement from Mark I to Mark II, I honestly couldn't even notice. One thing Sony is claiming is that the manually focusing experience on this new 16-35 is going to be much more intuitive and smoother. I didn't even really mind it that much on the original G Master. Now here is another like optical tweak, but also kind of has to do with programming too, but focus breathing. Just from these quick tests I rolled between these two, it did seem like this Mark II handled that flaw a little bit better, but furthermore, this 16-35 Mark II is also supported by the focus breathing function going on in some of these newer Sony cameras where the Mark I is not. So just real quick, I figured I had to roll a side-by-side test just to see if you all can notice any significant difference there. Now you're like, Dom, this seems like a pretty underwhelming Mark II. Optically, doesn't seem like much is different going on the inside. This next thing is a pretty big topic. It's honestly one that I care a lot about: minimum focus. This 16-35 Mark II focuses way closer than the Mark I. Sony says there are special floating element groups in here designed to keep that minimum focus distance really shallow throughout the whole zoom range. And that's really great. I think close focus on a wide lens just is a really good pairing. It's really nice to be able to get a foreground subject like right up close, especially at 16mm. So to me, the close focusing abilities and then like the size and weight have got to be the three major updates from the Mark I to the Mark II. Close focus, I'm pretty much putting up at the top. Now that our minds are going about close focus and all that, perfect time to transition into the second lens we're going to be talking about today, this 70-200 f4 Macro. Now, regretfully, like I said earlier, I don't actually have the Mark I version of this lens. I would have loved to do some side-by-side tests, but alas, there's still some pretty interesting stuff to cover with this lens. I've got to say, I'm really delighted with the size of this lens. Without its tripod foot and its hood, it's a really slim and minimal lens. So now a couple tweaks going on the inside of this thing. Let's talk about what's going on with the optics. Sony's boasting that a new floating element design cuts down that minimum focus to 10.2 inches from the sensor plane at 70mm. Sony says they've also made optical tweaks coming from the original version to aid focus breathing. Again, I wasn't able to shoot this up with the original, but what I can tell you is this Mark II is also extremely close to being parfocal. monofocal. Focusing on a point at 70 and then zooming into that point at 20 needed, again, like the littlest focus adjustment I could even possibly make. So people, that is pretty much all you get. I told you it was going to be a quick video just overviewing what changes came to these two Mark II lenses. As always, if you have any questions about either of these, let me know in the comment section. I know a ton of you have shot with this original 16-35 G Master. It's an insanely popular lens, and I know when a lot of you Sony shooters saw this guy come out, you thought about making that switch. I honestly have got to say, even though the optical and performance tweaks weren't quite as robust as I was hoping for, I do happen to think that this is a very worthwhile upgrade if you're coming from the original 16-35. With that, people, that is going to do it. Remember, if you like this video, to hit that thumbs up. Got a couple sweet videos lined up for you guys over the next couple weeks. You are not going to want to miss those. Luckily, if you're subscribed to the channel and you've hit that little bell button, you'll be notified when those videos come out. That is going to do it for this video, y'all. Take care, happy shooting, and we'll see you in the next one.